Morning. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. For those that are in the US, happy Thanksgiving. For those that are all around the world, happy Friday. Happy Friday. I wanted to quickly jump on here and talk about a topic that people have had questions about. So it's going to be fun, lighthearted. I want to give you guys some tips if you are a builder, planner, creative, event planner. I want to talk about building with the spirit of excellence. I made a post the other day and people were sharing how they were interested in growing and building with excellence. And so I want to give you guys 4 tips. I know that here in the States, people are probably, you're trying to not thaw out, but we're full from yesterday, right? So don't want to do anything too heavy, but help you guys. And I think this is going to be helpful, especially with those that are interested in planning for the next year, how to execute time, because you don't succeed in the moment. You have to plan to succeed. You have to plan to do well. So I want to give some of my success tips, what I do in order to build programs, build events, business, all of that. What are the things that I'm doing to manage even my personal life? How do I manage, being a wife, being a mom, and what that looks like as a believer? I believe that we have to have a level of excellence as children of God, and it's a reflection on who God is in how we live our life. So that's what we're going to be chatting about for a couple of minutes as I wait for the others to get on here on Facebook and Instagram. I want to let you guys know that people have been asking about our mentorship programs. They're open for the weekend. So I'll share more about that at the end, but in case I forget or I'm talking too much or whatever. But DTA, which is our individual mentoring program, it's within a group, but that's where we walk you through destiny and purpose and development and all those things. That is open. Dreamers and Seers, that's for the prophetic people, for the dreamers. That is now open. And then our supernatural family. So we decided to do a Black Friday flash sale for those that have been kind of like hanging on there, waiting to get in those programs. All right, let's talk about building with excellence, planning with excellence, executing with excellence. If you're on IG, it goes in and out. So I would encourage you maybe to check it out on my public YouTube page or my Facebook page, or you can just hang tight. But it tends to go in and out, the connection there. I don't know if it's where I'm sitting or something with IG specifically. But when we think about excellence, for me, I think about doing everything unto the Lord. The scriptures tell us that whatever you do it unto the Lord. And so when you're thinking about your life, when you're thinking about planning something, when you think about executing something, you need to ask yourself, is this something that I'm willing to do as if I was doing it unto the Lord, right? So Colossians 3:23-24, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. I think that if we lived our lives this way, even our jobs, when we're working for other people, we would do it in a way that we were remembering that it is not just for our human masters, not just for our job, for the glory of God. So when you think about excellence, whatever you're going to do, you need to ask yourself, am I willing to do this as if I'm doing it for the Lord? Because if I'm not willing to do it as if I was doing it for the Lord, then I may not want to do it. And this could be from raising your kids, creating a schedule and a structure in your home. This could be from planning events. So the first thing is you need to know that I am doing it for the Lord, even if I'm not getting recognition, even if I'm not getting praise, even if nobody's going to say anything about it. Am I willing to do it as if I was doing it for the Lord? Excellence is inborn. It's not something that someone anoints you with. Having an excellent spirit is someone who has a heart to do things so well that even if nobody was looking, they would be proud of the work that they did. So that's the first thing. You got to position your heart to excel. You got to position your heart to operate in a spirit of excellence. The next thing is you cannot settle for mediocrity. All right. This is for builders. This is for leaders, but you cannot settle for mediocrity. And I know a lot of people who just say, well, it's okay as it is, right? Like, oh, it's a little bit off, but it's not a big deal. We make a lot of excuses for imperfection. And there's a difference between perfectionism and excellence. Perfectionism so that people can, give you a high five, so people can give you accolades. But excellence is when you do it unto the Lord. So you're struggling with perfectionism if you're constantly worrying about how people are going to perceive it and how people are going to look at it. You're operating out of excellence because you know that you've given God your best. Now, if you know you've given God your best, then you can say, okay, I've given it my best. I can let it rest. But a lot of times when we let things rest, we haven't given it our best. We say, oh, I'm tired, or, it's not even my thing, it's their thing. And so you want to make sure that you're operating at a level that mediocrity is not an option. And I had a long conversation with my husband yesterday because I get very frustrated around certain things. And I've been asking myself, why am I like that? Right. So I'm an event planner. I love planning events, parties, whatever, the whole nine, right? And so when somebody has prepared to execute something and the other people are not as prepared, it can be very, very frustrating. And they are people that God has created with that measure of excellence. And when you think about Daniel and his peers, right? It said 3 of them arose above the other people, but it's not something that was it in their studies. They said they were the best in their class. They were the best artistically. They spoke several languages. And so you have to want to be the best for the sake of glorifying God and not necessarily for the sake of anybody else. And so when you have that driven in excellent spirit, you're not going to settle for mediocrity. The next thing that helps you to be excellent is you plan. You've got to plan to be successful. You cannot just say, well, it's just going to work out. You've got to plan over it and obsess over the little things. People will say stuff like, it's not that big of a deal. You don't have to, whatever, but you need to obsess even over the little things. That's what differentiates someone who's ordinary versus someone who's extraordinary. There's a quote that I've been reading a lot because I've been doing a lot of study around business, but God is in the details. It's not the devil that's in the details. God is in the details. And so if you're not willing to go over certain things line by line, whether it's in your personal life, whether it's in a program, whether it's an event that you are planning, you're going to miss something. And so when you're looking at the strategy, let's look at it personally. When we're looking at strategy for the next year, right? And let's say you want to look at your finances. You can't just say, well, I want to fix my finances. What about your finances do you need to fix? Do you need to reduce debt? If you need to reduce debt, how do you plan on reducing debt? Are there things that you need to cut off? And then what are you going to do on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, 6 months and a year? You've got to break things down into increments. It could be that I want to launch my first course, right? Okay, when are you going to plan it? You can't be like, oh, I'm going to launch a course next week, unless you are a novice, right? When I first started, all of our programs had a 3-month runway. And as we grew in expertise, strategies, as we developed our pipelines and things like that, we now know we can run something for 2 weeks and have this type of turnout. We can run something for 1 month and have this type of turnout. But you cannot just have a God idea and not have a strategy. Strategy is sitting and thinking through, and we have something coming up for you guys in January that's going to be phenomenal. It's going to be 3 days of training around strategy and vision and all of that. We're going to release it in December. However, you have to plan it out. And when we don't look at the details, that's when we have sloppy work. We have sloppy events. We have sloppy lifestyles, right? We don't look at each line. And if you're lazy in that area, you're never going to arise to a place of excellence. You cannot get tired of the mundane. You cannot get tired of looking things over line by line. And so if you're planning something out, you plan 3 months ahead, 6 months ahead, and then you start from the day of the event and you work backwards. So this is something that I have developed over the years as well. So for example, if I'm getting married and I have a wedding day, right? What will need to be happening the week before the wedding, the month before the wedding, 2 months before the wedding, 3 months before the wedding, all the way to where you are right now. Another way, another thing that you can look at is weight loss, right? If I want to lose whatever pounds in 30 days, or that's not realistic, 30 pounds in, let's say, 4 months, right? What do I have to do? Like, where am I going to have to be in the 3rd month? Scripture says that, let me pull it up. A king does not go to war, right? Unless he has prepared. Everything that the Father does has a level of preparation. It's 2 Samuel, let's see. In the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, no, that's when David was sitting around and not in war. Let me find the right verse. Kings do not go to war unless they prepare. A builder does not build, right, unless they have laid out a structure. And so it is important to not just pick up stuff. When we say that we're doing it unto the Lord, we have relied on our anointing too much. And I say this all the time. People will say, well, I'm anointed or I'm gifted. And I have fallen into that into that trap, because we say, well, God shows up, right? Well, God shows up anyway. God is going to show up, but there has to be a level of preparation for it to be excellent. So God can show up, but you have to give them some, you have to give him something to work on. You got to give him something to work with. You can't just be relying on, oh, I'm smart. Oh, I can, wing things very well, but that is sloppy. You're presenting a sloppy gift to the Lord. You're presenting a sloppy service to the Lord. And so you want to make sure that whatever you do, you have done your best, and then you give it to the Lord, and then the Lord is the one who can now raise the increase. So I talk about planning 3 months ahead, 6 months ahead, writing out all the details from when you're the event's supposed to be, the course, the wedding, whatever it is that you're planning, and then working backwards to make sure that you have achieved it. You've got to have a team. That's the next thing. And even on a personal level, like, if for me to excel, I have to have people around me to help me. Now, this is the thing. People always feel like you have to have money in order to do things with an excellent spirit. Even if you don't have the finances, you need to be able to identify what you need in order to do well. And so when I first started out and our programs were smaller, I had people that I was mentoring, people that were interested in being developed, that I said, hey, y'all, we could be a team and we can see what God does with this. But there's no financial reimbursement for it because we don't have the finances yet. But if we work together, we will see the faithfulness of God. You cannot build anything of significance without a team. The team doesn't have to be huge. It could be you and one other person. It could be you and 2 or 3 other people, but you need to have the right people. And so when we're talking about event planning, planning. You want to make sure that you have someone who has an understanding of marketing that can help you just create a nice flyer, right? You need to have somebody who's responsible with finances that can help you manage the finances. And you may be that person. You need someone who's administrative. And so I have helped plan bigger events that weren't my events. And while I could do marketing and all those other things, my job was administration on those bigger events. My job was to keep the calendar. My job was to keep them on schedule. My job was to make sure that we're showing up for meetings. My job was to make sure that we're staying on budget. So you've got to know your weaknesses, and then you've got to staff your weaknesses. It's the same thing in your personal life. If you have areas that you know that you're not good at, but you have a friend that is good at those things, you need to ask for help. And you don't have to be afraid of asking for help. You need to be able to say, hey, I'm not good in this area. I'm willing to help you in this area if you're willing to help me. So in order to build with excellence, you've got to have a team, and you got to communicate vision to your team. And this is the same thing from your family. Hey, we're going to be an excellent family. We're going to run on a schedule. We're going to do things a certain way. They need to have clarity around that. You can't be frustrated with your kids because they're not on time or they're not doing things on schedule, but you haven't communicated the family vision. You cannot be frustrated with your leaders about what they need to do, but you haven't communicated the vision. And so you want to make sure that when God sends you people, this is why people don't stay with leaders. People don't stay with leaders if they don't communicate vision. People don't stay with leaders. This is something I'm working with our executive team and our coordinators at our church is how do you manage high level gifts, right? Because as our church is growing, we're getting people that are already gifted. They don't need you to train them. They need you to know what you're doing so that they can know exactly where to be positioned. What happens is when God brings people that are already excellent, people that can already execute, people that are already high level gifts, and you are not prepared, they will get bored. They will get frustrated. They will leave. They will find another team. They will find another church. And so don't ask for things that you don't have the capacity to train and develop for. And this is the thing. You need to make sure that if God is calling you to build something, whether it's a church, whether it's a business, whether it's an organization of some sort, that you have an awareness of every single area in that department, in that organization, in that church. I can do pretty much every single thing in my church. I may not do it as well as the person that we put in position, but I cannot put someone in position and not know what's going on in that position. I cannot expect someone to execute in excellence if I don't have a bar or a measure of what excellence is, right? And so some of us want people to operate in excellence, but if we were to be put in that same position, we're not going to operate in that same level of excellence. And this doesn't mean that you know how to do everything well. So I tell my our media people all the time, like I can create a Canva graphic, I can create a simple whatever. I didn't go to school for it. You went to school for it. So whatever you're doing should be at a higher level than what I'm supposed to be doing, right? And so visionaries can see the end point. I can see the end point and I can help resource you to get to that end point, but I don't necessarily have to do it better than you, right? So some leaders think that, oh, in order for me to be the leader, in order for me to be the visionary, then I have to necessarily do it better. No, I have to be able to communicate well. I have to understand the level and the standard of excellence that I want. And then I need to be able to resource or champion the people so that they can do it well, right? But if you don't have a measure of excellence, and I'll tell you guys this, I can tell someone who is going to have a spirit of excellence by how they manage their own life. Like if you're late to things all the time, I know that you struggle with the spirit of you struggle with not having a spirit of excellence. If you show up to meetings and your hair is disheveled everywhere, you don't have anything together, you're struggling with the spirit of excellence. Now, of course, there's seasons where life is hard or whatever, but how you carry yourself is going to tell me the level of excellence at which you can operate. And guys, I will tell you this, there are some people that just don't have it. And I'm not trying to be mean, but you can coach and try to develop certain people, and they just don't have the eye. They're just not keen enough. They're just not sharp enough. Maybe it's their experience. And sometimes you may have to give people experience. You may have to open the world to them. You may have to show them what you're trying to do. But if you have done all those things and opened the world to them, and they're still not reaching that level of excellence, they just don't. And requires works. It requires paying attention. It requires not letting every single thing slide, right? It requires to please God. Person is not at that point, then it's going to feel like you're beating a dead horse, or it's going to feel like, oh, Dr. Faith, she's too much, right? Like she has this high level of standard. Yes, I do, because we're not even touching the level of standard. Really given the Lord a worthy offering. And so one of the last things that I'm going to share with you guys is that you've just got to also know when to let things go, right? There are some things that are out of your control that you have done everything that you could, and it still didn't work out, or, something fell short. One of the things that I had to learn how to master is obsess with stuff when I can obsess over it, and then let it go when there's no point in obsessing anymore. When you have done all that you can and there's nothing else that can be done about it, just let it go. And this is really, really important, because you don't want to be frustrated. You don't want to have a bad attitude. You don't want to be upset when there's nothing else that can be done about it. And this is where your dependence on the Lord is really important, because you say, okay, God, I have done what I needed to do, and now the rest is up to you. Yes, and that can include personal relationships. If you have given everything into a relationship, if you feel like you've been present, you've been consistent, you've been persistent, and the person is not meeting you halfway, then you let it go. There's no point in stressing and having anxiety and beating yourself up over something that someone is not willing to meet you halfway. So we create and we can control the things that are in our control, and the things that are not, we let go and just allow the Lord to have his way in it. So I want to take your questions, because I can sense that there's a lot of questions out there. If you're on IG, if you're on Instagram, you can join me on Facebook or YouTube if you're on Instagram and it's going in and out. But you can drop your questions with the hashtag Q. As I said, there's several opportunities to be mentored by me that we've opened up for Black Friday. So right now, our Destiny Training Mentoring Academy is open. This is for people who want to heal their past, rejection, wounds, understand their spiritual gifts, step into purpose, heal their relationships, their finances. It's a one-year program where you have weekly videos, and then I coach you, answer your questions on a weekly basis. Then our Dreamers and Seers Hub is for prophetic people, for dreamers, seers who want to be developed and coached. That's open over the weekend right now as well. Same thing, you get a weekly video, and then a 1 hour coaching, group coaching session. And then our Supernatural Families, finally my top tier program, which only opens once a year. And I take 10 women. I don't know how many spots we have left, but I get to coach you once a month for an hour. Then you get a group coaching with the other women, plus a social emotional learning coaching group. And this is where we get to work on you. We get to work on your businesses. We get to work on your ministries. We get to work on the things that you're building. This is where I can help take you from a 6-figure earner to a 7-figure earner, or I can help you launch whatever you've been trying to launch. I can help you start your business. This is where I can help you develop your family structures. And that is our top tier mentorship program. So those are all open for the weekend for Black Friday sale. Check your emails. We've been having amazing deals, packages, and all these things. So make sure you're on our list. All right, let's check out these questions that are coming in. How do you work with people who don't see the vision, even when you communicate it? That means you didn't communicate it well. When you have communicated the vision and they don't see it, see, when my teams don't execute well, the first thing I say is, did I communicate well? If my teams are not able to what I have been communicating, then I have to look at my communication style. I have to look at my communication consistency, right? Now, so for example, a church is different because we have many teams, right? In our church. And so if I have 80% of my teams functioning well and understanding the vision and executing well, and then I have 20% that are not, then I can say I probably have the wrong person in the seat. And what does that mean? The person that I have put in leadership or in whatever does not have the capacity or does not fit in the paradigm of my leadership style. So you always then have a choice whether you're going to develop a person or you're going to replace a person, right? And that's something that leaders have to decide all the time. But I cannot just replace a person if I haven't tried. I do a 3 times rule, right? If I haven't had meetings, if I haven't modeled what I want you to do, if I haven't rehearsed what I want you to do, then I cannot just replace you. But if I have done all those things and there's been conversation, then it's time to put somebody else in that position because they just don't have the capacity for what you're asking them to do. And that doesn't mean they don't have the capacity for the whole organization. It might be just that area. They maybe need to be moved and be put in a different area where they may flourish better. Great question. Make sure that you put a hashtag Q in front of your question. I can answer them. I'll answer questions about the mentorship programs as well that are open only for this weekend that you may have. How much does Dreamers and Seers? Should I go to the website? Yes, the websites are in the description. So if you look at the top or bottom, go. All our mentorship programs are really cheap, like less than $50 a month, so that you can be trained and developed and coached and all of that. So go to the websites and you'll get the prices for all those things. Now, top tier mentorship is executive level coaching, high level coaching. That is one-on-one. I don't do one-on-ones because I don't have time. And so that is what we call a premium product. That is the Louis Vuitton of all of the things that I do. And so you will get that level of access. You know, you have access to me via phone, chats, texts every day. So that is a high level product that you will get to access for 6 months. How have you been able to grow in excellence as it relates to time management? Any advice on how to properly fix the way you schedule out your day to grow in excellence? I love that question, Devontae. Time management is so important. You have 2 things to manage: your time and your money, right? When I believe that when you stand before God, he's going to ask us, how did we steward our life? When he says, how did you steward your life? He's saying, how did you manage your time? What did you do with your life, right? And so I manage based on priorities. And so I have 3 areas of priorities. I have my family, I have my church, I have my business. And church and business, swap inside and out. And so based on those 3 priorities, right, I box my time. So Mondays is administrative days, and I will do administration in the morning in Mondays mornings, I rest. I try to rest my brain, right? And then the afternoon, I do emails, administration for both the church and the business. Tuesdays, I dedicate solely to the business. That's when I do my one-on-ones. That's when I have my executive meetings with my team and my team leads. And then Wednesday, I will do a little bit of both. But what I do is I chunk my time. I box it. So these 3 hours is dedicated to this. These 3 hours is dedicated to this. If you work for someone, 9 to 5 might be dedicated to that. But if you work from home, you may be able to slip in. So I would encourage you to box your time off. When you wake up, from the time that you wake up to the time you go to bed, every hour needs to be accounted for. And you can start by boxing it out at the beginning of the week and making sure that you're accounting for every single hour. And it could be 1 hour of exercise. It could be 1 hour of rest, but you're boxing it in there so that you become acquainted to how you flow and you create that rhythm. After a while, you're not going to have to do that anymore. I'm also learning on how to do is important and not necessarily what is on my to-do list. Because sometimes we can have these to-do lists, but not everything is important on that to-do list. And so I prioritize things based on importance and also based on when it is due in, right? So I have things that I have to turn into team members. I have things that I have to turn into my business manager. And so when those things are due, I also put them at a high level of priority as well. So not just what's important, but not just what needs to be done, but what is important, and prioritizing things based off of importance. You seem to do very well with your time management, even while you're on vacation. I do, right? And so when I take vacation, I take vacation. But for example, right now this is Black Friday weekend, right? Most people are chilling, watching TV. You guys are watching me. Thanks for jumping on, right? But if you own a business, it can't be that. Like, you can't just be like, I'm gonna ride it out. I'm gonna coast it out. And so even there are sometimes when we take trips that I have to box out time to do certain work. But I've learned, for me, I have to get out of my environment in order to rest. So I cannot say I'm on vacation and be at home because I'm going to work, because that's what I do. I'm in my office, I work in here. And so you also got to know yourself and how to navigate to maximize rest and to maximize productivity. Is there such thing as an angel of excellence? I've never heard. I believe that all angels operate out of excellence because they operate out of the throne of God. But if you're looking for someone to help you to be excellent, one of these is one of those things that's not spiritual. It's a discipline. It's a characteristic that you have to develop. It's like a fruit of the Spirit that you have to develop in yourself. And then the Holy Spirit can help you to be excellent in the things that you are doing. Good questions. Any other questions that I may be missing? I want to reconnect with you. Please do check out the different ways you can reconnect. The first 3 are group coaching programs where you get to meet with me 1 hour a week plus videos. And then the other one is a one-on-one opportunity for me to help develop you in whatever area that you're trying to grow in. It is an investment. We just put our first 9 ladies through it, and they have done some phenomenal things, some phenomenal things with the time that we had together. And with Top Tier, we get to celebrate in the islands somewhere in June. And so we're finalizing that location. You get 3 days vacation in addition to that one-on-one that we are working together. All right. Any other questions that I may have missed? I wanted to make sure that you guys are aware, because next week it's going to happen. Someone is going to say, when are you opening DTA? And I'm going to say, we just closed it. When are you opening DSC? And I'm going to close it. So all of our mentorship programs are open for the weekend. You get in there and start learning right away. Next week, you start your group coaching with me. And then for our Top Tier, we start in January together. Do you have any tips about how to properly separate business from home when you work with your spouse? I work with my spouse, and I literally do everything with my spouse. We run the business together. We run the church together. We raise kids together. So we are very much enmeshed, right? And so I'm not necessarily separating it from my spouse. When I think of home, I'm thinking about my children and how I separate that. So for example, my kids get home at 4, from 4 to 8 o'clock every day. I'm not doing business. I'm not on church calls. I don't care if they've scheduled them during that time, because I have to invest that time for my kids. They have to know that once they get home from school, we're focusing on homework. We're focusing on quality time together. And so I have blocked that time out on my weekly schedule. After 8, they go to bed. Then if I have to have another business meeting, if I have to have a church meeting, then I put that back in there. So that's some of my ways, right? And then we are very busy at our church. So a lot of weekends, our kids are part of whatever is going on at the church. And so, but they know when we have vacations, they know when we have time off. And so they understand that in this family, we prioritize over quantity. So they know for Christmas, for 10 days, I'm all theirs, right? And so none of my businesses, I'm not showing my faces there. We are going somewhere, we're going to spend time, and they know that in the springtime, during their spring break. So it is easy to feel what's the word, to put false pressure on yourself if you have multiple things going on and you're trying to raise kids. But you need to communicate to your kids how you're managing things, and if you can communicate when you guys spend time together and that it's important to spend that time together, it flows pretty well. Is there a certain anointing or gift for those who are highly skilled in multiple areas? Well, it's not a certain anointing or gift, right? So you have spiritual gifts of leadership, you have spiritual gifts of administration, right? And some people may be high in administration and leadership, but not necessarily high creativity. People that are multifaceted, and an amazing 3-day event that we're doing in January, where we're going to talk about being multifaceted. They're usually highly creative and highly administrative, right? So I'm a creative who's administrative, which makes me multifunctional. That means I can, design merch, and I can plan a wedding, and I can, run a meeting. So if you're multifaceted, it's just God has given you multiple gifts in multiple areas. It's not necessarily one particular gift. And you to manage that. You have to learn which areas are of most important, which areas need to be used. So that top tier is a great one for those multifaceted, high earning, high achieving folks that want to sharpen their areas. I would love to help you develop that. What to do to keep the vision. So the vision is what keeps you alive, literally. And so when you have a God-given vision, you eat it, sleep it, dream it, think it, right? The only time vision begins to die is because there's been disappointment. Visions begin to die when you thought something should happen at a certain time and it didn't happen during that time, right? And so you want to make sure that you keep your vision alive by people who believe in you. You keep your vision alive by keeping it in front of you, and that you're constantly working on that vision, even if it's just a small bit, little by little, you're constantly working on that vision to keep it alive. If you're already in a team that does not value excellence, how can you best influence leadership team to be more excellent? Whatever they ask you to do, execute it at the highest level, right? So that's the first thing, because this is what happens. When you operate at a level of excellence, either people are going to rise to your level, or they're going to fall out, right? They're going to excuse themselves from the table. Now, it's hard when your leadership is not functioning at the you want to do is then serve as an assistant to that leadership, meaning, hey, what can I do to help you with this? Or, hey, I had an idea. Is it okay if we add this component? And I'm willing to execute it until someone else takes over it, and help them. It is frustrating. It is really, really frustrating when you're under leadership that doesn't have the same level, but you can see how you can add value to them, how you can give suggestions, and then how you can operate at such a level of excellence that it has nothing to do, they have no other choice but to also rise up in their level of excellence as well. I am in my D10. Will I need to re-sign up for the new year, or will my membership automatically renew? If you're already in DTA, it just automatically renews. It's when you leave DTA that you have to re-sign up for that time. All right. So it automatically renews. The Dreamer and Seer link is not working. All right, we'll repost it and check our emails, askdrfaith.com. They've been sending out all of those emails, but let me see if I can grab it from somewhere really quickly and just post it for you in the chat. Dreamers and Seers is our prophetic hub. And it is open for a limited time. So when you guys are like, oh, what does this dream say? You should have signed up for Dreamers and Seers, right? That's where we cover all those things. We've put that link in the chat, and you should be able to get it now. All right. Any other questions that I may be missing? IG, if it's glitching, join us. Interesting, you're talking about this. Holy Spirit has told me to my ministry experience to do all things with the spirit of excellence. Yes, and you can be excellent without necessarily having the money, right? Excellent is working with what you have at the level that you're at. So thank God, one of the things we've always gotten about anything that we do is that there's a level of excellence to it. And I was thinking about it, we just finished our Pioneers Conference, and that was the buzzword, right? This was amazing. This was excellent. And honey, that thing cost a good grip, as the young folks say, right? But you don't have to have money to execute with excellence. You can, I remember living in a small little apartment, how clean you keep that apartment, how well you decorate that apartment with the little things that you have. Our first apartment, half of the things were from yard sales, right? I would go to yard sales and find little things, and just it's what you do with what you have that allows the Lord to trust you with more. So even when we started having events, even though they were at a budget, right? And now it's at multi-thousands dollars. At that $6,000 budget, I was still saying, how can this be excellent? And in events, we're looking at customer service, we're looking at ambiance, we're looking at a quality of teachers and speakers, and we're also looking at how over and beyond you go, right? To make sure that people have encounter God or have the experience that they want to have. And so I don't want you to guys just equate excellence with finances. Excellence starts with you managing whatever you have, and the Lord blows on that and moves you to the next level. How to identify their gifts and build the spirit of excellence in my children. So Supernatural Families is the program that you should sign up for. Right now, Supernatural Families is for your children. And Supernatural Families, we have the kids just finished taking spiritual gifts test. We have spiritual gifts tests for our kids. And then we have all kinds of trainings that we provide to parents and to grandmas, grandpas, to help you develop those things in their children. So that's open to this weekend. But you just look at the things that they're naturally good at. You look at the things that they naturally gravitate to. And as you master those, then you are able to develop and help raise your kids up to the next level. Melinda said, amazing conference. Thank you for coming. Pioneers Conference is excellent. Every area. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Any other questions? I want to just bless you guys with the spirit of excellence to do everything that you do as if you were doing it to the Lord. And if you feel like this is the year that you want to take yourself personally, you want to take your career, your business, your ministry to the next level, I'd encourage you to sign up for one of the programs. You get to be developed internally, but as well as with whatever the Lord has put in your hands. All right. Look forward to talking with you guys a little bit more. Have a happy Friday. Bless you. Bye-bye.